We have the first generative AI camera on the horizon. Now, what makes this camera interesting
Hold on.
is, yeah.
Do you whisper to it? What does that mean?
Yeah, so the idea, supposedly, around this camera is that it does take in the visual elements that it is seeing, and then it is basically reinterpreting that using generative AI. Now, the point that when I found this camera, or actually Travis found this camera and he sent it over to us as a news story, it kind of like made me start thinking of this like age old question that's like been popping up more and more, especially because of cell phones in particular. But it's like, what is a photograph? Like at the end of the day, what makes something an actual photo? Because how much manipulation does the photographer have to the piece of tech have to where now you are actually still deeming it an actual photograph? And this is something that I want to know in the comment section and in the chat as well, because I think we're starting to get to a place to where like there is so much computational stuff happening inside of like even our phones, right? Where it's like, oh, they're removing things from the background without you having to ask, or they're cleaning up the sky, or they're making all these adjustments to your face and to lighting. And like some of it is appreciated. And yes, it's using machine learning to know what changes to make. But at what point are we no longer actually looking at a true representation of what actually happened? Because so much AI, and now with this new camera, generative AI is literally being implemented at the camera level.
Let me see if I get this straight. You're on an engagement shoot.
Yes.
You live in an ugly place. Nothing remarkable about the place. Can't afford to go somewhere else to have a beautiful place. You take a picture with your significant partner, and then you say, pretty mountains in the background? Is this what we're talking about?
I think this is what we're getting to.
Okay.
Now, initially, what this camera is looking at doing is just taking in the information and creating the image. And the only benefit I can see from this is when you start talking about like cameras today, right? Like the R5, the R1, all these big cameras that are out, they have to constantly improve the sensor in order to take a better image, right? But if the entire image is just being generated, as far as the camera is concerned, it just needs a decent enough sensor to gather enough information about what's in front of it. So then it can then use its computational information to generate a completely fresh new image. So you can take a 8 megapixel sensor, take a photo of something, and because it's taking that information and generating something new, it could technically generate a 80 megapixel. Like, oh, maybe this is how we actually get our 1DX or our 1RX. I don't know. But
it's kind of what Canon's doing in the R1.
I mean, it's similar, right?
When it's taking that 24 megapixel RAW and then turning it into 100 and something JPEG.
I mean, it's the same idea, right? So the question becomes is like, this sounds very far-fetched, but if you would have told me if you'd have told me 3 years ago, based off what we were seeing with AI, and especially like when the news first started coming out about ChatGPT, and you'd be like, hey, in 3 years, videos, photos, like you're not going to be able to tell the difference. They're going to be able to talk to the AI like her, and like there's going to be humanoid style robots coming from it. I would have laughed in your face. I'd be like, you're ridiculous. There's no way that we're going to let this happen. We've all seen the movies. We all watched Terminator. We all watched Her. Like, there's no way. Oh, 3 years later, yeah, we actually are here. So now when it comes to AI for me, I don't take anything off the table. I'm like, yeah, I guess that could happen. The question becomes, when it comes to these AI cameras, how will people feel about the camera itself not truly capturing the image that's happening on the sensor, but instead it's just generating a new image based off of what that sensor is picking up?
So the artist inside me dies a little. But if we're going to be honest, if you could take a picture and it can relight it, it can fix the pose, and it can put on some makeup, and it can remove some stuff in the background. Gosh, I want to say cell phones are heading in this direction. Like, this says it's going to be the first generative AI camera. Cell phones aren't they the first generative AI cameras?
I think this is the first dedicated AI generated camera.
But in 2030, maybe not even that long,
No.
in 2026, especially with ChatGPT going to the iPhone,
Yeah.
which we have a little Apple news in a little bit, I think we might have cell phone pictures. You know, like when they took pictures of the moon
Mm-hmm.
and they were like perfect pictures of the moon?
Where people were actually taking pictures of like a round cap in the distance, and Samsung was actually replacing it with the moon. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I think we think that people don't want this, but I think the masses, they wouldn't mind. You know, we gave what was it? The depth of fields thing that Apple does, the fake
Yeah.
depth of field, the
Yeah.
cinematic
Portrait
mode.
mode and cinematic mode.
We say people don't want this, but when they see it, the average person with a cell phone in their pocket,
Yeah.
they want it.
No, I absolutely think they want it. And in fact, I can prove that they want it already because like I don't know if you remember this, but like about a year or two ago, there was like this huge trend of people like, and I did it too. You take a bunch of photos of yourself, you uploaded it through this app, and it generated like 100 AI versions of yourself. 3 of them were pretty good. The rest of them were all jank. But we're seeing
The eyes were like,
bro. But we're seeing that improve already. I can tell you this actually just happened realistically in our own field. So the other day, Travis sent me over some pictures from a real estate agent. So this is a real estate agent that we both knew. She's inquired to work with me before. She inquired to work with Travis, but she has like no budget, like 0 budget. She's like, it's not even worth really talking, right? And so I'm like, as much as I love her, I'm just like, we just can't work for free. You know what I mean? She legit sent us over headshot, or I think Travis might have found them on Facebook. She created headshots of herself and are using them professionally. And they are 100% generated by AI. And she was like, I think I found the Holy Grail.
have you seen that ad on Facebook? I'm just laughing this entire time. The persona.
No, what is it?
It's that AI. You upload a picture and it gives you like 15 different business poses or
I'm pretty sure it's what she
yeah,
used.
absolutely. 100%.
So that's the thing. I think you're right. I think the masses are going to eat this up, but I think you're right. I don't think this is going to be a AI generated camera. Like I think that's going to flop as far as I'm concerned because this feels more like a feature and an app. I feel like there's going to be quite a few people that are going to, I mean, because I feel like apps are already very close to this, where they're like, you literally, it's just like a camera interface. You take a picture, it analyzes that picture, you can prompt it, and then boom, you're going to get AI images out of it. Because right now, that's the hardest part with when it comes to like using Midjourney and all these other ones is that like you have to prompt it like crazy. But if you can take a photo in real time and give it a reference, I feel like the AI is just going to be like, they're like, oh, thank you. This is more data than you could have possibly tried to type out with, your feeble human brain.
Yeah.
Just give me the raw information and I'm good to go.
It's funny with what we struggle about in 2024 because I think it's the generative part, the something that wasn't there that we're adding to the photo. Because if we're honest, we have been manipulating photos since the film days.
Yeah.
Like the fact that a longer exposure, a shorter exposure, dodging and burning, all those things, that wasn't real. That's not how it was actually captured. That isn't especially the Photoshop days. It's not real. So I do get that like generative AI is another step in the fakery. But I think in 50 years, people will look back on this conversation like we look back on HDR. Like, what are we talking about? HDR's, that isn't fake.
Yeah, I think for me, and this is, and I'll wrap it up on this. I won't go on too big of a tangent, but like I'm fine with manipulation when it comes at a artist's artistry, knowledge and skill, right? So like when it comes to photoshopping, that takes an artist to make a decision and then to have not only the make the artistry decision in their head, but then also have acquired the skill to be able uh to make it happen, right? The issue I start to have with AI is when it's no longer your artistry and you're saying, edit this in the style of blah, 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 blah. Or it's doing that on its own, making that own decision. So the AI is the artist and it is the executioner. And so that's where for me it starts to cross that line of yes, it is like manipulation. And yes, we've been manipulating photos from the beginning, but we were manipulating them out of artistry and trying something new and loving that new thing. But AI, as far as I know, cannot create anything new. It is all replicated from another person's source used as a reference. And 9 times out of 10, probably 99 out of 100, that person probably didn't consent to having their photo be used as a inspiration to the AI. And that's where my issue slash struggle comes in with using AI in these instances.
Keyword yet.